welcome to Arbitral Insights, a podcast series brought to you by our international arbitration practice lawyers here at Reed Smith. I'm Peter Roscher, Global Head of Reed Smith's International Arbitration Practice. I hope you enjoy the industry commentary, insights and anecdotes we share with you in the course of this series, wherever in the world you are. If you have any questions about any of the topics discussed, please do contact our speakers. And with that, let's get started.
Hello everyone and welcome back to our Arbitral Insights podcast series. And I'm delighted to have as our guest today Caroline Falconer, who is the Secretary General of the SCC Arbitration Institute based in Stockholm. Hello Caroline.
Hello.
It's a real honor to have you with us and I'm much looking forward to our conversation. Let me introduce Caroline at least briefly. She is someone who really in many respects doesn't need much of introduction, but I'm going to give you one. She is, as I mentioned, the Secretary General of the SCC Arbitration Institute, and prior to that was actually its Deputy Secretary General. And prior to joining the SCC, she worked as Senior Legal Counsel at the energy company Vattenfall for 7 years, and prior to that in private practice. She holds degrees from Sweden and London, and on a theme that we'll return to in the course of this podcast, she is also a real champion for diversity. And in that respect, she is one of the founders of the wonderfully named SWAN, Swedish Women in Arbitration Network. And we're going to come to that and other aspects of diversity in the course of this discussion, Caroline. So it really is an absolute honor to have you. And I'm much looking forward to our conversation. And I know that our listeners will really enjoy this.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast. It's really an honor to be here.
Well, the honor is definitely ours. Let me start, first of all, with asking you about your background to the law and to arbitration. So if you tell us a little bit about how the law found you and or how arbitration found you, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And well, you already went through my CV quite well. I have a LLM degree from Stockholm University. I am Swedish. I'm from Stockholm, and I chose to stay in Stockholm, strangely enough, for my law degree. By then, when I went to the Stockholm University to study law, I was already then very much into going to court as a professional lawyer. I didn't have any good understanding of arbitration back then, but I was completely set on working with disputes and commercial disputes in the future. And why that is, I have no idea. But I decided, I think I was 13 or 14 when I decided that I was going to work in courts or with court cases as a lawyer, as an advocate in Sweden. And even if I'm not in courts anymore, I'm still working with disputes at least. So how law found me, I'm not sure. It was always there, and it was just the path I had to take for some reason. And I thought for very many years that I was influenced by Ali McBeal. But then I looked into the airing years for that series, and that was actually later. So I decided before Ali McBeal became a monster hit. So the short answer to your question is I don't know. I don't know why I'm here, but it felt completely right, and it still feels very right to be here, and especially I would say in this position or at the SCC Arbitration Institute today.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. And I'm sure that so many people will have been influenced by TV programs about the law.
I think so too. And it was probably some other series that I can't remember at the moment, but it was something in the Swedish culture at the time when I was around 13 that made me decide.
We definitely had it. I remember growing up and seeing all sorts of legal dramas. I'm not quite sure what impact they had on me, whether they were positive or negative. But anyway, I'm here too. So anyway, here we are.
Yes.
And in the course of your a very distinguished career to date, I'm sure there have been some key mentors and inspirations in your career. I wonder if you could share a bit of information about them, please.
Yes, of course. I When you sent me this question, I really had to sit down and think, because there have been so many great mentors over the years, and there, well, so many people standing on the sidelines and just cheering me on, and I've really needed that to be who am today, really. And I think I always try to have an open mind also, and try to listen to advice. So I love getting advice, and trying to incorporate it, and become a bit better by the day or by the week at least. I did have I have a think about that, and especially from the an arbitration's point of view, from where I am today in this industry. I had my forming years, or my first real years as a working lawyer, was at a law firm where we did quite a lot of international arbitration, or arbitration and international arbitration. And I worked closely with one of the partners there, and he had this phenomenal attention to detail, and took me under his wings in some way, and always everything he delivered was of the highest quality. So the attention to detail, and to never deliver anything good enough, I got from him. And I think the working life was a bit slower then than it is today. I also I there were long hours, but also it wasn't as quick as everything is today. So you always had the possibility to give everything, each single email and each single submission, the love it deserved according to him. Then it could be really time consuming and frustrating at times, of course, but it was immensely educational, and it helped me a lot to get to where I am today. I think he was also very good at pushing me, and getting me to try my wings when I was a young lawyer, and really to get out there in the arbitration world. And these were the years when I co-founded SWAN, the Swedish Women in Arbitration Network, and to have people on your side in that was very important for us. In later years, well, I was in-house legal counsel for 7 years at an energy company, and I got to work very closely with the general counsel from time to time, and that was very inspirational to get to work on those interesting issues high up in the hierarchy of such a large company. She was amazing, because she has and had and has a very strong inner compass in relation to what's right and wrong. And she always also went to action when she saw something was wrong, or not according to the high standards we had. And the way she did it, that was really inspirational, and something I took with me. I'm only mentioning 2 people now, but there have been so very many along the way, and all have been so important to cheer me on, because life becomes so much nicer if you are if you have your fans along the way, really.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree, and I'm not surprised that you've only had the opportunity to name 2 people, because there will undoubtedly be so many other people, as we've all had along the way, and who continue to inspire us, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that'll be exactly the same for you, in the same way that you're now inspiring another generation of lawyers, both in Sweden and outside Sweden.
I hope
Um,
so. I hope so.
No, well, I know it's there's no doubt about that, and that brings us very nicely to your role at the SCC. And I'd be very interested if you could share with us. I'm going to ask you a few things about your role at the SCC Arbitration Institute, and its objectives to grow, and any trends that you see, and sort of, just because a number of our listeners will, of course, heard of the SCC and in its previous name, the Stockholm Chambers of Commerce, but may not be familiar with its work and its objectives. So let's explore this a bit. So first of all, I wonder whether, Caroline, you might just tell us all a little bit about your role as the Secretary General and the objectives of the SCC to grow and expand its reach.
Yes, thank you. So I am the Secretary General of the SCC since this year, earlier this year. So it's almost been a full year now in this new position. And before that, I was the Deputy Secretary General and Head of Operations for half a year before that. So my position is very much to lead the SSC team, to set the strategies for the institution. And in my days, I share my time between working well with the strategic issues and new innovations and where are we going with the SSC. But also, since we are only 13 people in the secretariat, I am also working to some degree with daily operations together with the team and the head of operations, and together with the SSC board. And I spend a fair amount of my time externally doing podcasts, doing speaking assignments, conferences. But what I love the most, I must admit, is actually when I get out to my previous colleagues or the in-house legal society, when I get to meet in-house legal counsels or general counsels at companies and to discuss their needs, their opinions of the dispute resolution business as it is today, and really to get those opinions and those thoughts and back with me to the drawing table at the SSC. So I try to spend more and more time with the representatives for our users, really, the companies behind the disputes and potential disputes in detail.
And it must be a very busy, hectic role because arbitration, as we all know, is such a prolific form of dispute resolution. It's the most important form of dispute resolution for international business, which really takes us to the next thing I wanted to ask you about your work and the SCC, which is a bit about the geographic focus of the SCC and some of the trends that you're seeing in the SCC's work and opportunities for further growth with the SCC's arbitration services. And I ask this from this background. When I was a much younger lawyer, and you know I've got a lot of grey hair now, but when I was a much younger lawyer, I remember the SCC, as it's now known, was particularly renowned for dealing with disputes involving Russia, Central Asian parties, say from Kazakhstan and that sort of thing, and of course also in the Nordic region. But I wonder whether you could share your thoughts on where things stand now and where the trends are.
Of course, I'd love to. And you're completely correct in your question that we are looking at growing our business and expanding our reach, as you asked. And we have a very interesting history, and I'm not going to go through the 106 years, isn't it, since 1917 in this podcast. But we started our international journey in a trade agreement between the Soviet and the US, and then also a trade agreement including China. So we did get very many disputes from those regions, Eastern Europe, Russia, and China, during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We do still see a number of disputes from those areas, so Eastern Europe and Asia. And we are still a household name, if you can say that, in international arbitration for those companies. And we are very happy to be there and have that position in those countries. But we are so much more than only Eastern Europe and the Nordics, of course. I actually had a look at the numbers a little bit before this podcast, and during the last 10 years, we've had parties from 87 different countries. And each year we have parties from approximately 40 to 45 countries. So each year we see more or less all four corners of the world are coming to us. And even if the majority of the parties are still from Europe, Asia, and North America, I would say, we also see South America, Africa, and Australia and New Zealand, I would say, quite a bit in our cases. And so we have a quite wide reach when it comes to the world, the geographical reach. What we are looking at today is much more saying the most modern arbitration institute. We have been leading the way for a number of years. I dare say that in this podcast, that we have been very modern, and we were the first ones out, one of the first ones out with expedited rules. We were the first ones out with emergency arbitrator in 2010. And we were the first ones out with the SCC Express 2 years ago, and also the SCC platform and the ad hoc platform. So we're trying to lead the way for other arbitral institutions as well. We are very happy to see that other institutions are copying us and seeing that what we do does work, and this gain is a gain for the business societies, of course, in the world, that we try to innovate the offer arbitral institutions have to parties. And what do we see for the future? We foresee that we stay this most modern arbitration institute, and that we focus. We are continuing to focus on quicker dispute resolution methods. So 2 years ago, we launched the SCC Express. We have rules for that in English and in Swedish. We have model clauses for that. We are really trying to get companies to understand the greatness of the SCC Express, which is a way to resolve disputes in 3 weeks and for a fixed fee. So it will only cost you 29,000 euros, irrespective of the disputed value. And this is something I love as a former in-house legal counsel. I really see the future in quicker ways to resolve disputes. You were also asking about trends, and the trend I see is that disputes are taking longer and longer, and the submissions are getting larger and larger. What was said in 50 pages 15 years ago is now said in 100 pages. And of course, we're not restricting submissions. That is, if there's a need for that, that is a decision by the arbitral tribunal. But we can see how cases are growing on our platform and in our administration. So this is something this is very important for me personally with my background, but also for the SSC, and from a Swedish background as well, that we are trying to find easier ways to resolving disputes, quicker, easier, and also possibility for the parties to stay friends after. You don't need to end up in a full-blown war and ruin the relationship for the future, but really to find tools that will help you build a strong relationship for the future as well between the parties when that is possible.
Well, that was a wonderful answer. Thank you. You've really illustrated there why the consumers of arbitration are looking to use the SCC. So why they use the SCC. And I particularly enjoyed your comments there about innovation, about leading the way. And you're very right that the SCC was at the forefront of so many of those things that you mentioned, and that in many ways as well, a lot of institutions followed what the SCC did. And so that's a real accolade, I must say, as someone who's observed the growth of the SCC over the years. I really applaud that. And that takes us to very interesting, I think that leads us quite nicely when we're talking about innovation and about new things. One of the things that we're all aware of now is artificial intelligence, and we can't avoid it. It's just there. It has an impact. It will have an impact on arbitration. We don't know yet exactly what it'll be, but it will be there for sure. And it's something that stakeholders in the process, like you, me, other institutions, and our clients are all thinking about. So I wonder, if you could just share some thoughts with us from the institutional perspective as to what you think the impact of artificial intelligence in international arbitration might be.
It's a very good, very interesting question, of course, and it's the question of the day, isn't it? Or the year. Everyone's talking about this, and I don't have any answer. Let's start there. I have my hopes. I really hope that this trend or this progress will lead to shorter disputes, to quicker resolutions, and to less expensive procedures. So I do have my hopes on that we can find a way to resolve disputes in an even quicker and even more cost efficient manner in the future. We have come across AI being of use to arbitral tribunals a couple of times this year. And sometimes it's been really a great help for the tribunal, cutting costs or shortening the time a little bit. Maybe you can get a first draft or something from an AI bot with the correct confidentiality framework, of course. But we've also seen where it did not work, where we, for example, we heard of this hearing where an AI bot got to transcribe everything from the hearing and got actually a yes to a no, or a no to yes, whatever it was, which was a big deal.
That would have been a big deal for sure.
Yes, it was a big deal. It was an important question as well. So a yes to a no can't be a no when you transcribe the hearing. So it's really, from a personal point of view, I'm looking with eager to the progress we are seeing, and we are looking into ways how we can use AI tools, of course, as well as an institution. Me personally, I'm proud to say this actually, that I try to use ChatGPT now and again, at least a couple of times a week. For example, never with anything case related. I must say that never any confidential information, but for example, when you need to write a short, or you want to write a short LinkedIn post, I can write my post and I can send it through ChatGPT, and I get it a bit better. I get it a bit shorter, more crisp. I get the points out in a quicker way, instead of me spending additionally 10 minutes on it. I got that in 1 minute. So I think there are so many ways you can save time, really, in arbitration, in the arbitration industry, with the help of AI, and we're just in the beginning of it. And I don't think we should be afraid of it, but the responsibility for what you delivered will always stay with you. It will never transfer to the AI bot, of course. So as long as you stand for what you produce and you deliver, I'm quite fine with the usage of it. And of course, you need to make sure that which information you put in and the output. But I'm very much looking forward to it, and we also we had a look, of course, at the Silicon Valley Arbitration Center guidelines, the draft they launched last year, 2023, and we're looking into it, of course, as all major arbitral institutions are at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, for all of us, watch this space, Caroline, because
Yes.
this is obviously something that'll continue to develop and develop and develop. So, I wanted to ask you one more thing about the world of international arbitration, and then I'm going to end the podcast with, as we always do, with some more light-hearted conversation. But I just wanted to ask you, because you are a great ambassador for arbitration, you're a great ambassador for women, you're a great ambassador for diversity. And I love all of those things. And lots of our listeners rightly love those things too. But you and I both know these things are still very much a work in progress. There's still much to do to ensure real equality on all fronts. I wonder whether you could share some of your thoughts and some of the initiatives the SCC is undertaking to ensure bigger and better diversity in international arbitration appointments and the services that you provide.
Yes, of course. This is very much an issue that I feel strongly about. 15 years ago, I co-founded SWAN, Swedish Women in Arbitration Network, and I'm still a member of the association. I'm not part of the board anymore.
Well,
I got
I'm very
kicked
happy
out.
to know you are still a member. You must be a member.
Yes, of course, of course. No, but I feel strongly about this issue, of course, as do so many others as well now. And when but I can also say that when we started 15 years ago, there were very few women in Sweden working in international arbitration. I remember that we were three co-founders, Åsa, Kristina, and myself, and we sat down one day. We were at different law firms, and we sat down one day and we made a list of all women we knew of in Stockholm doing arbitration. And I think we came up with 20 names, not more. And today, I'm sure we have 200 names that I could write down on that list. So there has been a great progress in these 15 years. But and I think that Stockholm and Sweden have come quite far in these issues, but we are not all the way. We have not come all the way yet. I'm proud that the SSC we are good when it comes to appointment of arbitrators, and we have not received the yearly statistics for appointments yet, but I have the numbers from 1st of November. And 1st of November, the SSC board appointed arbitrators were actually female in 53% of the appointments and male in 47% of the appointments. So we are trying to stay around 50-50, and we're not looking at this every week or every month either. We are looking at this 4 times a year just to make sure we are in the right region. And this is really an ongoing work. We always make sure that when we put forward the list to the board, we have both female and male names. What we saw a couple of years ago was that, as everyone knows, the larger cases are generally going to men, and the smaller cases are going to more to the female arbitrators. And this is also something we are actively thinking about, that when we have the largest cases we have, we make sure we have female arbitrators on those lists as well. And of course, when we find people or we give places to education, so arbitrator training, or the international arbitrator training program in June in Stockholm, we make sure we have both female and male names on those lists to make sure that the new blood coming in is as mixed as possible. And then we must lead by example. We must make sure that the SSC board is in balance, that the SSC Arbitrators Council are both, we find both female and male names there, as well as from different regions of the world of interest to the SSC business, of course. And also our conferences. When we are inviting speakers to our conferences, we make sure we find people from different countries of interest, both male and female, and some different ages as well, some being more junior. Sometimes you need to get your first appointment, and that is very much coming from the institution side, and that is also true for speaking assignments. And if I may, something we still see as a problem. If I'm not going to say that everything's super good at the SSC, because it's not, because something we still see is a bit problematic at the SSC is when we appoint emergency arbitrators. Emergency arbitration under the SSC rules is a very quick procedure. You have 5 days to appoint, or we have one day, we have 24 hours to appoint an emergency arbitrator, and then the emergency arbitrator has 5 days to render the decision. So it's a quite quick procedure, and you really need to be on your toes as an arbitrator for this. And when we appoint these arbitrators, we have a list of approximately 10 suitable arbitrators, and we send out the question to all of them at the same time. And almost every single time, it's the male arbitrators that are the quickest to answer and getting the assignments. And we are always making sure that we have an equal number of men and women on the list, but it's almost always men taking the assignments as emergency arbitrators. So I always try to tell, when I speak to women who could be on those lists, I always try to say, well, be as quick as you can and do your conflict checks as possible, as quickly as possible, and make sure you send in your answer as quickly as possible, because it's really first come first serve, because we have all getting the question are suitable for the assignment.
No, well, again, very enlightening. Thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing to really push these very important issues and objectives. I think a lot of great things are happening. So thank you very much for that and everything you're doing. I just want to then just wrap up this superb conversation with you, and because many people who know me will know that I could carry on talking for far too long, so I'm going to limit myself here. We talked about limiting the size of submissions. Well, I'm limiting the size of my podcast now by wrapping it with you. Let me ask you this one question, because arbitration is very international. It involves lots of international travel, which is a great blessing for us who are involved in that field, because it really is a wonderful thing. Is there a particular place that you love going to? I mean, apart from Stockholm, of course. And is there one place that you have yet to go to that you would love to get to?
That is a very good question. And if I would like to say, actually, first of all, that for everyone who's listening and thinking about going to Stockholm, I really suggest going to the Swedish or the Stockholm archipelago. And since we are a hub, the Stockholm is a hub for international arbitrations. We know that a lot of international arbitration practitioners are coming to Stockholm. So please don't miss out on the Swedish or the Stockholm archipelago or the other archipelagos in Sweden. They are just the best, but make sure you go there during spring or summer. Otherwise, it's it's not the archipelago you would like to.
Cold and dark. Yeah.
Yes, it's a bit cold and dark. That's a good explanation for how it is. A favorite place where I would like to go. Well, I thought of. I love going away with work, and it's great to being able to get to see the world with your work in this way, as we are in this world. The best trips are though with my family, and we are soon going to just chill at the pool at Gran Canaria in Puerto de Morgan. We're very much looking forward to that. And this is actually the first time ever I'm going back to a hotel. I always try to find new hotels or new places to go. I want to see the world. But this is the first time ever we're going back to the same hotel where we went last year. So this was such a good trip. So we're going again, really. So that is also a suggestion. If you don't know where to go, Puerto de Morgan in Gran Canaria, that's really nice. And where to go when where I haven't been yet on my bucket list is Galapagos Islands.
Absolutely.
Unlikely to go there with work, but someday in the future, maybe. Not with work though.
Well, who knows? Next month there might be an arbitration that comes out of the Galapagos Islands.
Who knows?
We must all live in hope. Well, look, thank you, Caroline. It's been an absolute delight to do this podcast with you. Thank you for being such a wonderful guest and for all the wonderful work you're doing with the SCC and more broadly. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon, either in Stockholm or or somewhere else. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Arbitral Insights is a Reed Smith production. Our producer is Ali McCardle. For more information about Reed Smith's global international arbitration practice, email arbitralinsights@reedsmith.com. To learn about the Reed Smith Arbitration Pricing Calculator, a first-of-its-kind mobile app that forecasts the costs of arbitration around the world, search Arbitration Pricing Calculator on reedsmith.com or download for free through the Apple and Google Play app stores. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, reedsmith.com, and our social media accounts at Reed Smith LLP on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. This podcast is provided for educational purposes. It does not constitute legal advice and is not intended to establish an attorney-client relationship, nor is it intended to suggest or establish standards of care applicable to particular lawyers in any given situation. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. Any views, opinions, or comments made by any external guest speaker are not to be attributed to Reed Smith LLP or its individual lawyers. All rights reserved.